now, but I'm an ex-accountant, chartered accountant, and I worked in the property industry, property development for developers, and obviously there I was doing a lot of raising finance and managing cash flow. So that's why I do what I do now. And today I'm not going to do market commentary today. Actually, I'm just going to go straight into the examples, okay? Because frankly, it's that lender confidence is very high. It's very good. There's lots of products. LTVs are being increased and criteria relaxed all the time. That is what we see. So there's some great products out there for most of the things you want to do. And some of that I kind of will inadvertently cover that in this anyway, because I will point out some of the criteria as we go along for some of these deals. So again, these are the things we cover. They're all development, but they're all development focused. We do complex buy-to-let, which I'm going to cover again in the examples. But it's either things like planning plays for buy-to-let, or it is large portfolio refinances, people holding on to, or developers mainly holding on to their stock in complicated manners. Those are the kind of things we deal with. Again, I sort of covered this, but I'm going to go through these things. But rates, products change over time; they vary. The products I go through they may not be available now. So these are for illustrative purposes only. It's not advice. And lender appetite, of course, depends on a variety of things, but importantly, they are subject to applying and underwriting at the time. So let's get into it, okay? So we've done enough exclusions. What we've got here is, I've got something covering my screen. Okay, so here, okay, I've included this one because this actually was quite interesting. So it was a while back now. There was an inquiry we had in, and it was someone who was looking for a HMO. They'd identified properties they could convert to HMO, but they didn't have. Firstly, they owned their own property, but they didn't have any other rental property, and they hadn't owned any other rental property before. And so the problem they were having was they wanted to go straight to HMO because they'd been at various of these property events. They had established or had a desire for a higher yield than a normal buy-to-let. Okay, so that's what they really wanted to do. But obviously, lenders were wanting them to have experience first. Now, that was a buffer he was coming up against because first-time landlords going straight to HMOs was a bit of a complex area for lenders, but particularly so when you're actually refurbing it first. So he was ideally looking for something where he could buy it with a bridge, pay for the refurbishment works, turning it into an HMO, fully let it, and then convert it onto an HMO product as well. Okay. Ideally, what he was doing was he was initially we're looking for some certainty. Okay, because when you're a first time, particularly when you're first starting out like this, it can be maybe slightly on your mind that you might do all the work, convert it, and then you're on a bridge, which are not the cheapest rates, are they? Bridge in comparison to buy-to-lets and mortgages. That once it's then fully let, there's no guarantee that you'll actually get that term product. So what we were able to identify here was a product where it's an 80% refurbishment bridge. So you get an 80% loan to value bridge, and which equates to about 74% net. So that's pretty good going. Okay, and then what this allowed to do was this allows the borrower to purchase, refurb, and then fully let this property. So they do have to fund the works themselves on this particular product. Okay, that's worth bearing in mind. So it is 80%, but you've got to fund the works yourself. So it's really designed for light works, which I'll get on to the last point. So the beauty of this particular one was it has a pre-agreed term, HMO term at the end. So, and it actually literally is done on the same applications. The beauty of this one is once you've done the works, it literally it forwards straight onto. So you literally, if you don't do anything, after 9 months, it literally converts straight to this term mortgage. There's nothing to do. There's no fees to pay. Okay, and no value to call out. However, it will be at the original value if you do that. Okay, so if you want to get, so that was 75%, for instance, of the original value. If you wanted 75% of the new value, because you've done these improvements, and obviously it's now an HMO, it's arguably worth more, then you can do that too. It's just a small fee to pay, and the value will need to revisit the same value that did the initial valuation for the bridge. Okay, so it's still pretty good. The beauty of that is that you do not have to actually take their product. So when it comes to the end, you can start shopping about, see what else is there, And if you can get slightly better, because there are more lenders now that are catering for first-time landlords, and they are down at more of the cheaper rates now. Okay, the ones at the cheaper rates are just a little bit more strict on their criteria. So, but this gives you a fallback, and it allows you to do something. So you could do a 2-year term, for instance, and then you could then refinance later on. So the important point on these is that these are designed for works done under permitted development rights. There's nothing structural involved, and ideally no planning. Okay, so you would be a maximum of 6 bedrooms. I know sometimes you need planning for 6 bedrooms. I know that, but it's not absolutely hard and fast. But it's designed overall, okay, for easy works. Okay, so nothing complex. So as soon as you do anything structural in there, they won't be able to do this particular product. So that is why it's a high LTV, and that's why the rates on it are quite competitive. Okay, so that's my first one. Okay, next one. And we're going to stick on light refurbishment here because, again, these are such great products for when you're doing something really light works, and they are quicker, and not necessarily quicker, but there's slightly less to go through than there would be with the development loan where you're borrowing the works. Okay, so here, this one here, this was a developer, and they were looking at a mixed site. They'd identified this site, and the beauty of it was all on one title, and it was retail on the ground floor and 3 flats above. But the flats were tatty; they weren't really done very well. They didn't comply, I think, with various different standards, etc. And so they just needed to get in there. They needed to sort those particular bits out, which was going to be a light refurb. They could then sell the flats off individually, and then ideally keep the commercial part with the retail on the ground floor on a commercial mortgage. So what we were able to look at here is in a similar way an 85% bridge here, because this person had done some projects before, okay, and they hold property. So they were able to get to 85% bridge, okay. Again, the idea for that bridge is it allows you to buy it, do the refurb works, and then rent those things out or sell them and split them up as you were. So the idea that this person had was that when they buy the property, they would be splitting out the ground floor and the first floor. So the ground floor would then be on, being the retail unit, would be on a separate lease, and then that could then be moved onto a commercial mortgage once the flats have been sold off, okay, because they would just be the only ones remaining on the title. So again, this one works really well. It was a bit easier to put in place on this particular one, and again, it works ideally for very light work. So these were no PDR. There were no planning. There was nothing structural in that. It was really simple. So it was, you're talking something like £300,000 purchase, and 30, 40, or maybe £50,000 worth of works. That's what you're talking about there. So it's quite light on the works. That's when these come into their own. Okay, if you go any heavier than that, then it's not that these aren't good still, but to be honest, as soon as your work's slightly more heavy, not only will these be pressurized in terms of the amount I actually get to do these particular products, but you also might be better off actually using something where you can borrow the works as well, okay, as in borrow the money for the build as well as money towards the purchase. So I'm now going to move on to the next one. So right, let's move on to mezzanine, because we actually have seen a few more mezzanine inquiries coming through. Now, the use of mezzanine, it can be very advantageous, but you have to do your maths, and you have to work out whether it's going to be too expensive for you and whether it's going to be too much pressure on your profit margin. So it only works for profitable deals, okay? Because otherwise you're going to suck up some of your margin here. But here's an example of it. It's still not that common, particularly at the moment, because LTVs are quite high anyway. I mean, you can get a good amount of borrowing as it is. So generally speaking, if you're doing, say, a commercial conversion project, you can get 75% towards the purchase price and 100% works at the moment. So you don't always need this. However, it's not always the case, depending on the different metrics involved and the proportion of how big, say, the build is to the land purchase. Okay. Those things might affect how much you get. And so what you can do is you can use a second charge lender, or mezzanine lender as it's called, to sit behind your development loan to top these things up. So this is an example here. And again, this was a commercial conversion project. It was again retail underneath with an office above, 2 floors of office above. So and again, the plan here was to purchase, okay, and develop or convert the offices into flats, sell those off, and either sell or retain the commercial part, okay? In this case, because it was all going to be under permitted development rights, the person here was a bit unkeen on having to actually bridge first. They wanted to go straight to development. So what we ended up looking at here was going to a development lender, and then they were on board with the plan. The plan was that we would apply for and go through the process as if planning was in place, and they would send their valuer out and say to the valuer, value as if planning is going to be in place, and then the developer was then going to stretch out a gap between exchange and completion and gain permitted development rights in between. Okay, so that's how this one was working. So what it resulted in was when you take the first and second charge together, it was 81% loan to value against the purchase price, and plus 100% of the bill was funded as well, and professional fees. So they were all funded. So that was quite a good level of funding there. Again, it's the second charge rates are a bit more expensive, but because they're funding such a small proportion, what you've got to do is look at the overall cost to you and then do your maths to say, well, the overall cost blended, it might end up only being X percent or a certain percent, say 10%, 11%. It might not be actually that bad overall compared, when you consider the level of funding you're actually having. Because this person here was able to do 2 projects instead of doing 1. So again, that was a massive booster. But again, bear in mind, a minimum loan on mezzanine at the moment, it's got to be at least 150,000, I would say, a minimum at the moment. And that's just for their particular slice. So that's in addition to the first charge development lender. So it's not for small deals, okay? And it does need to be fairly profitable because you need to fit all of these extra costs and interest into the loan, into the profit on cost calculation, okay? What they tend to do is you can tend to get them to use the same valuer and the QS, which is really good. But generally speaking, you will pay for 2 sets of legals, so bear that in mind. That's normally how it happens. So that is that one. So let's move on. So this one here is actually quite interesting because there's an interesting product around here, and what this developer was looking at was they came and they had a portfolio existing, and it was a mix of resi and commercial. Okay, but overall it was very low LTV. It's actually only about 30%. So what they were looking for was they were someone who did quite a lot of deals, and they did mostly HMO conversions where they bought, refurbed, and then they tenanted them completely, and then remortgaged them, and then pulled the money out. But what they were using was bridging loans to buy these things, and they just suddenly they called me and they said, well, look, I wonder whether I've got this portfolio, whether it would actually be cheaper to do a second charge or take a bridge behind some of those mortgages on my existing portfolio to then raise money instead. Would that be better? And so we looked at this, and actually there was a product that is a second charge. It's on a second charge basis. It can actually be on a third charge basis, this particular one, but this was on a second charge, and it's a revolving facility. So what happened here was it's able to sit behind residential products, okay? It doesn't work behind commercial products, only residential. But here, you're able to agree a 3-year facility up to 75%. And then what happens is you pay one arrangement fee when you borrow that money. So when you've actually borrowed the full sum, that's what you paid on it. So if you were to pay it back and borrow it again, you don't pay another arrangement fee. So instead of organising multiple bridging loans over that 3-year period, that was going to work out cheaper. And the rate ended up being slightly cheaper too. But the beauty of this was it was interest only, and you only paid your interest on the funds when they were drawn. Okay, so this was a very interesting angle. This was a really interesting one to look at actually. So there are a couple of criteria here, and that is that if you're going to look at something like this, there was at the time it was a minimum of 3 buy-to-let properties. If you had less than that, then they wouldn't look at it. But it wouldn't also work if you had HMOs or MUFBs over 4 properties. And what an MUFB is just a number of units on one freehold title. So you get a block of flats. If it was all on one title and it was more than 4, they wouldn't look at it. Okay. So the other thing was your mortgage provider needs to give consent for this second charge. So just bear that in mind, because there was in one occasion where they didn't want to give consent. Some lenders don't allow second charges to sit behind them. Okay, they just don't allow it. So you do need to get their consent. You can tell them what it's for. So make sure you would check for that first to make sure it's actually possible before you go for anything like this. Okay, so that's that one. Okay, this is planning, and this is buy to let. This is a buy to let planning play, and there's two different ways of looking at this. So the first way is where, in the first instance, we had a developer client who was actually looking to secure a site. It was a house with a garden to the side, and it had planning for another house that was going to be adjoining that house because they were going to be terraced. They wanted to secure the site. They didn't have time or they didn't have capacity at the moment to actually develop it, but it was a good deal. So most lenders, you see, what happens is that when you go to a buy-to-let lender, they don't like it because this person didn't want to split the title. It was not in their interest to do so. They wanted to buy it all on one title. So buy-to-let lenders don't like things when they have planning. They think you're going to do the work during the term, so they do not allow it. Okay, so most buy-to-let lenders wouldn't allow it, generally speaking. And so what we were able to identify was a commercial lender who was on board with the plan. So what they were doing is they weren't as cheap as the other lenders. However, they were on board with what he was doing. They put something specifically in there to say that he wasn't allowed to do the work, so he had to sign up to that. So there was something specifically relied on there for the solicitor to deal with. What that allowed him to do was actually rent it out, make a monthly profit until he's ready to develop it. It's ideal. Bear in mind on these type of products, of course, you might get early repayment charges, which is the ERC's bit. This particular developer, because it was a low yield, I mean, that's why he was selling it now and not renting, because it was a low yield, he needed a 5-year fix in order to actually get the leverage he wanted, which meant he was going to have to pay an early repayment charge when he then developed that site, when he refinanced it. But he was happy to do that. It was a cost to actually doing business, and it was worth it overall. So that's one example. Second example is the other way around, where developers come in and their strategy is to look for houses with larger gardens. And what they're looking to do is they're saying, well, ideally, I'd buy it with a buy-to-let loan, and ideally, I'll be able to rent it out during the term because then I don't have to worry about how long it takes to get planning. Well, there are ways to do this, but you've got to tell the buy-to-let lender. So most buy-to-let lenders do not allow you to apply for planning. Okay, that's quite general. I'm not saying all of them do, but I'm just saying it is generally the case. So it is probably in your loan documents to say that it's in breach if you actually go and do that. So what you don't want to do is get in any of those positions. Okay, it's a small world property. Lenders speak to each other, and sometimes you can get in their bad books, and they all share these debts. Okay, so if you were to do something, make sure you use things for what you're doing. Make sure you use a product that's appropriate for what you're doing, and always tell the lender. Okay, so what we were able to do here was, in this particular example actually, is the developer, what they did was they split the title. So what we did was on purchase, the developer split the title. So they split off a piece of land that was going to be going in for planning, and then the current existing house was on another title, and then the buy-to-let lender just takes a charge on just the existing house, okay, on a buy-to-let loan, okay. Now it's likely that the value of that will actually be less than what you're paying for the site, because the whole point is it's got potential, and that doesn't matter per se, because the value, sorry, the buy-to-let lender will base their value on the existing property, okay. That allows you to rent that property out and have some income on the go whilst you relax, okay. Apply for your planning, appeal your planning, whatever you need to do. So it is possible. If you're doing it like this, you won't be able to use deposit funds from someone else unless it's a gift from family. Okay, this is again generally speaking, as I mentioned earlier. You won't be able to use investor funds because buy-to-let lenders, you need to use your own funds or a gift. Lenders, it's not a case of just buying loads of properties with investors in that basis. So bear that in mind. Okay, if you're going to do that, you could use bridging instead. So moving on, because this is going to be the last one, because I know I'm going to run over, I think. So what we've got here is just quickly, this was an airspace one. These have come up a few times now, so I thought I wanted to cover one of these because it's quite intriguing, because what you can do here is, with this particular angle, is actually a lower buy-in. So what we're finding is that the clients have got quite a small purchase price and they're quite build heavy. So, but the actual acquiring of these, they're quite difficult to put together, but the actual buy-in on the in is low. So this particular deal here, for instance, was roughly about a £250,000 purchase. It was about an 850 or £900,000 build though, but it was a 1.6 million GDP. So that is quite amazing. And the issue you've got here is how you're building it in your construction method. But anyway, I won't start getting into all of that. What I'm going to tell you about, just tell you about the deal and how it flowed. So they'd agreed a subject to purchase for a freehold of the building. Okay, they were sort of quite large buildings already. There's 20 plus flats in them. And what they'd agreed was, they said, well, we will buy the freehold from the freeholder, okay, that freeholder did not own the leasehold to all of the flats involved, that it was only the freehold. And they'd be buying it with planning and consent to build 3 flats on top, okay? And what they needed to do was be able to develop it with the occupiers of the flats still remaining in those flats and not owning the whole building, so they didn't own the lease. So, and then also this developer had experience. They'd had experience in developments, but not in airspace, okay? So, basically, yeah, that's right, because it was built. This was build heavy, so the actual build was more than 4 times the purchase price. Okay, and also this developer was undecided as to whether they're actually going to purchase it and flip it with planning, or actually develop it. So there was a few different things to look at here. So what we did, we were looked at, and we saw some terms, but actually the terms were only giving 20% towards purchase price. Okay, so that's what you've got to watch out for on these, because it's so build heavy. Okay, what you're buffering up against there is loan to cost with these lenders. So it's not just loan to value, okay, that you can get caught out on, not caught out on, but max out on. It can actually be loan to cost. Loan to cost is simply saying that a development lender does not want their loan to be more than X% of the total development cost, which is normally about 85% or between 80 and 90%, okay? This was buffering up against that because they're having to fund the whole £900,000 build and the purchase so small. So you'd only get 20% towards day one. However, it was over a 24-month term. 100% of the development cost is funded, including SIL, etc. Because I think there was some SIL in this one, even though it was airspace. So, and what they required was across the board. Okay, when you're looking at this across the board, experienced contractor with previous airspace. Okay, if you have not done an airspace one before, most of the 80% of the lenders were off the table. The other lenders would look at it. Okay, but they would definitely require, they're going to be heavily relying on the contractor. Okay, we found lenders that did not require flats to be owned or vacated, because lots of them did. Okay, because it kind of comes with its complications here. And then what we did was we did that, but we also had an alternative bridging loan, okay, which was at 75%, and that was on the basis of not developing it. So he would not be able to develop it if he did that bridge. Once he's in with that bridge, because it's high value, loan to value, the exit is definitely sale. You wouldn't be able to exit onto a development loan without paying a significant chunk down. So that's what we did there. So I think I spent quite a bit of time on that, because I always spend more time than I think I do. So that is pretty much me finished. We do run an introducer program, so if you're interested in that, let me know. If you want us to do the work and you make some money while we do it all, then please refer some friends or refer any developers you come across. And contact me for any more details. I'm not going to go into massive detail on that one. So that's me. I'm going to say thank you very much for listening. I hope there was something in there that jumped out at you, or anything that you thought, oh, that's a good idea, or that might help you. If it does, then great. That is what we're here for. Whiz me any questions, or to contact me for any deals that you want to discuss. I'd love to hear from you. So I'm going to hand you back to Hells, and thanks for listening.
Thank you, Will. Yeah, so next we've got property CEO are going to be giving us a short presentation. I know these guys from Rob, so I'm just going to go ahead and let them do their piece, please. If he's here.
I don't think they're here at the minute. I think maybe we'll speak to them at the end if they.
Oh, okay. No worries. Well, it is time for Emerald anyway. So obviously I'm really excited to see Emerald speak, because I've been stalking her for years, and she will give it in black and white, and you'll find it very interesting. So if we can go on to Emerald, that would be brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks, Helen. Hi, everyone. So I'm Emerald. I am a property investor. I'm also a mortgage broker now as well. Tonight, I'm going to share with you a little bit about, oh, thank you, spotlighting there. I feel like a celebrity now. I'm going to share a little bit of my journey with you, of all the things I've done. I've made so many mistakes, so I'm going to share every single mistake that I've made with you as well. So you can have a laugh at some of those, and hopefully you won't make them yourself. I now primarily invest in buy-to-lets, so I'm a portfolio landlord of buy-to-lets. I have a HMO as well and some semi-commercial, but I started off with a scattergun approach all over the country, looking at every deal I manage you can imagine, from development to serviced accommodation to HMOs. So I've literally tried everything that you could possibly imagine. This presentation, although it's about me, I don't want it to be about me. I want it to be teaching all of you guys how to invest in property, how to not make mistakes. If you're starting out, how to shift your mindset, how to get going, just to help you guys really. So any questions, drop them in the box, ask at the end. I really don't mind. You can ask me anything. I'm not fussy. So I'll take you back to where I was before I did property. So before I was in property, I was a personal trainer. Anybody that knows me knows I absolutely love training. I used to play rugby. So I quit my job one day. I used to manage care homes and I thought, oh, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to work for myself. This is going to be awesome. And I became a PT, which was quite cool. During my sort of personal trainer journey, I ended up at some business masterminds. At this one particular business mastermind, I heard a property person speak, and they spoke about how they built this portfolio with none of their own money. And I thought, this is awesome. I really want to be in property. I've got no experience. I've got absolutely no money. I'm going to give this a go like this person has. And then I ended up at a property event, and the rest is history. So just to highlight that there, when I started in property, I'd never managed a refurb. The only property I'd ever bought was my own home. I had no money whatsoever. I was probably in minus figures with credit card debt. And I thought, now I'm just going to give this a go. So if you're out there and you need to raise finance to get your property journey going or to extend it further, then yeah, you can do it, because I've done it, and if I can do it, literally anybody can. So in my journey, I've had loads of mindset shifts, many mindset shifts. I've started to understand what I actually enjoy doing in property. There's so many different property strategies that are bombarded at you, from development to rent to rent. Someone's just asked a question about rent to rent. I'll answer that later. To serviced accommodation, to HMOs, to just being a landlord, to hands-off investing. And part of your journey is going to be figuring out what works for you, what do you enjoy, and what do you want to do, because there's no point chasing the money if you hate the strategy that you're working on. And every single one of the strategies that we're going to discuss today work. I 100% believe that, because I've seen so many awesome people do well in their particular strategy. But does it work for you as a person, for your time input, for the money that you've got, for the way that your mindset works, for your risk appetite? That's what you need to figure out, and what do you enjoy, because there's no point working on stuff that you don't enjoy. So when I started in property, all I ever wanted was to build a portfolio. I just wanted a portfolio of buy-to-lets. I did a course learning how to do buy, refurbish, refinance. So for anybody that doesn't know what that is, you buy a property at one value. You either buy it in cash or with bridging. You do some work to the property, and then you try and refinance that property at a higher value, and you rent the property out, and then hopefully you should have the income for the rest of your life, or until you get rid of that property. That is all I wanted to do. And I live in the southwest. I live in Gloucestershire, and I looked at all the property prices where I live. And I did some viewings, and I made some really low offers. So I literally just went into normal estate agents, looked at really normal 2-3 bed terraced houses near Gloucester city centre, did my numbers, took off 25%. Because that's the profit margin I needed to get all my money back out, made that offer, the offer got rejected, and I did no deals. And I thought, oh, this is shit. I was taught this on the courses, and it's really, really not working. I thought, I know, Gloucester's just too expensive. BRR doesn't work in my city. That's terrible. I'm just going to go up north. So I ended up near Birmingham, did exactly the same thing, stuck some deals my way, took off what I thought the refurb would be, put in my 25% profit margin, made a really low ball offer, and surprise, surprise, the offer never got accepted. I wasn't doing any direct vendor work. I wasn't getting to know the estate agents. I was just phoning out, booking viewings, doing my numbers, getting offers rejected, and I was getting quite demotivated. I thought, Birmingham doesn't work either, too expensive, let's go further up north. So I ended up in Stoke, nothing worked there, and eventually I ended up in Liverpool. And I was getting a bit better at negotiating them, because that's a skill that you need to learn when you're getting into property. I was getting better at stacking my deals. I'd spent a little bit more time networking and spending time with builders, spending time with other investors. So probably my deal stacking got better as I progressed up the country, as well as through my journey. So about 6 months into this strategy, where I was just making lowball offers, I had an offer accepted in a little town outside Liverpool in St Helens for a little 2-bed terraced house. I think I had the offer accepted at 52,000. It needed less than 10 grand's worth of work, and it probably would have been worth about £80,000. I thought, oh, this is awesome. I've had an offer accepted, but I've got no money. So I didn't really know what to do. So during this whole 6-month period where I was going out stacking these deals my way, which was literally just taking off my 25% profit margin and fingers crossed hoping it would work, I did an awful lot of networking, and I really, really utilised social media. So anybody that follows me, I still utilise social media a lot now, but literally I just post every day. I talk about what I'm doing, what's going right, what's going wrong. And I really, really did this at the beginning of my journey, particularly posting in all the property networking groups. And to support that, I was going to loads of events every single weekend. You'd find me at an event like a proper property groupie. So I took this deal around the events with me, and I was trying to source it at the time or raise the finance. I didn't really care how I did it, if I'm honest. I just wanted to get a deal done. So I went around and showed everybody, this is my deal. I've had an offer accepted. Do you want to buy it off me? Do you want to lend me the money? What do you want to do? And eventually this guy looked at this deal and he said to me, do you know what, that looks like a good deal. I don't know anything about the area, so I don't want to buy the deal from you, but do you want a joint venture on it? And I just thought, yes, I do want to do that. So for anybody listening thinking about JVs, I really, really wouldn't recommend just JVing with the first person that offers you money. There's due diligence checks that you need to do. You need to get to know them. Do your values meet the same? Do you have the same idea? Do you want to hold the property for the rest of your life, or do you want to hold it for a year or two? What do they want to do with the property? Do you want to do the same strategy? Do they have a good credit score? Are they the sort of person that you think that you can work with? Because on my first JV, luckily it didn't go wrong, but I literally just met this guy at this event and he said to me, let's buy this property, and that's what we did. It didn't go wrong for me, but there's so many things that could have gone wrong, that have gone wrong in other JVs later on in my journey that I'll talk about. So this guy said, yeah, I'll put the money in. So that's what we did. Luckily, he didn't pull out. Sometimes you meet investors, they say they're going to put the money in, you get to legals and things don't really happen for you, especially when you're at the beginning of your journey. Maybe you don't pick up on people that aren't so keen as investing as they're verbalising that they are. So we bought this property in St Helens. And this property took ages to get through legals, which was fine because I was out. I'd moved up to Liverpool during this time so that I could manage all the refurbs that we were going to do. And this guy that wanted to JV with me, he said, go out and find some more properties. So that's what I did. I ended up in Liverpool. I ended up at a property auction and we bid on 3 properties on the same street. When I say bid, I've never really bid in an auction. I've always bid pre-auction or post-auction. So 2 of these properties, we put a pre-auction offer in. And one of these properties, we put the offer in after the auction, and we bought all 3 for less than £40,000 each. So I think it was 3,999 just to stay underneath the stamp duty. So I thought, this is awesome. Forgot that I'd never managed a refurb before. Now I had 4 refurbs on the go before I'd even done one from start to finish, because all these properties pretty much completed at the same time. So for anybody out there that's rushing to get going, that really wants to start or get going in your property journey, another thing I wouldn't recommend doing is biting off more than you can chew, because having 4 refurbs on the go at the same time was really, really stressful for someone that had never managed a refurb before. So as I mentioned, I told you I was going to tell you all of my mistakes. So things were going great. This guy had offered to buy all 4 of these properties with me now. He was putting in the money, I was doing the work. We seemed to be getting on okay. I was looking for some builders. when I went out viewing properties, it never really occurred to me, and now this is going to sound really stupid, but it never occurred to me to look at the outside of the properties. I always just walked around them. That looks nice, wrote my list, needs a new kitchen, probably needs a rewire. I didn't really know what I was doing, so I just had this list that I'd got off the property course, and I didn't consider looking at the roofs of the properties. So this 3 that we bought on the same street, this builder came out to do a quote, and he was like, do you know you need brand new roofs on all 3 of these properties? And I was like, oh, do I? I'd never really thought to look at them. So that's what we needed to do. I had to go back to my investor and say, look, I've got my numbers a little bit wrong. We need 3 new roofs on these properties. And luckily, again, for me, this investor was really cool with it and was like, we've got a contingency, that's fine, not a problem, we'll just get these new roofs. So the moral of the story there is not only look at the outside of the property, which I'm sure you will do, because you're probably way more sophisticated than I was at the beginning of my journey, but don't worry when you make a mistake. I know a lot of people can't get going because they worry about going back to their JV partners, their investors, or making a mistake like that. It turned out that these little 2-bed terrace houses, it cost about £2,000 per property to retile and re-roof these properties. So on each property it was £2,000 extra, which was 6 across the 3, which actually wasn't a major problem. It wiped out all of our contingency, but we still managed to get going. So if you do make mistakes, it's not really a problem. Our numbers still worked out at the end, and properties like so forgiving that now I think about 3 years later, 3 or 4 years later, these properties are worth way more in value anyway. So that 2k that we messed up on in the beginning on each property really doesn't make a difference now. So don't let the fear of making mistakes stop you from doing anything or paralyze you. So whilst I was up in Liverpool, we bought these 4 properties. We actually bought another one as well. So we got 5 together on this joint venture. I thought to myself, I really need a cash flow and strategy. So I went out and got 4 serviced accommodation on a rent to rent basis, 3 in Chester, 1 in Liverpool. So I had all these refurbs on the go that I'd never managed before. And I was also setting up a serviced accommodation business, which was cool because I really needed the cash flows and I really needed the money. But again, it was probably cramming too much on my plate, setting up all these businesses at once. So for anybody that's thinking about doing loads of different strategies, don't just try and focus on one. I was up in Liverpool for about a year. And then I realised that I really hated living in Liverpool because I'm from down south and all my friends are down south and all my family's down here. And living in Liverpool with no friends or family, I was actually pretty lonely. So the JV partner that I'd done with my SAs, I gave him the SA business and just walked away from it. Obviously kept the 5 properties that I purchased with my JV partner. They'd all been refurbished by then. We had a good letting agent and I moved back down south. And I thought, awesome, I'm probably going to do SA again because I really needed some cash flow, but I really enjoy refurbing. So I looked for a flip at the same time as well. So I was probably about 18 months into my property journey then. I'd managed to secure a lease option on some land. So I was looking at how to develop this land and going through planning with this. This was with a JV partner. I'd managed to find 7 rent-to-rent SA in the centre of Cheltenham. So the way I did that was I specifically looked for blocks of flats in Cheltenham. So I got a block of 4 and a block of 3. I took all those on the go in one go and I purchased this flip in Stroud with a different JV partner. So you're probably bamboozled by all the different things that I had going on at the time, and that's how I felt. I was in the middle of a refurb flipping this property. I was doing this lease option, trying to secure development finance, figure out planning, and I was trying to run a serviced accommodation business again. And I just managed to get really overwhelmed with it all, and I was probably doing too much. But also I wasn't doing anything very well. So I wasn't chasing sort of direct bookings for my serviced accommodation. I wasn't chasing the construction market like I told my JV partner that I would. And my flip was probably going a little bit slow, managing the build and doing everything with that. And the lease option, I probably wasn't putting enough attention into the planning application that we were doing. So if you're starting out there, I'd really recommend focusing on one area and one strategy, because it will make your life so much easier and actually do a much better job in what you're doing. Because you think if you've got fingers in loads of different pies that you're doing really, really well, but actually you're probably just doing loads mediocre. So I looked at my serviced accommodation business and I thought, you know what, this has provided me the cash flow, but I literally hated it. I hated guests ringing me up. And because they were all on rent to rent, and somebody asked in the questions, do I think it's a good strategy? Yes, I do think it's a good strategy. But because our serviced accommodation were on rent to rent, we didn't actually have the profit margins, just hand them all over to a management company. So it fell upon me as the sort of working partner in the joint venture to go and do all the work. And I really didn't enjoy that. From my time that I'd spent at North, I had learned that I loved the refurb process and didn't love the managing guest process. So I don't know why I set up that business again, because I really didn't have any love for it. So what I decided to do was sell that business on to somebody else, basically source them the deal to get the cash so that I could carry on doing the refurbs that I enjoyed. I finished the flip that I was doing. Myself and my JV partner managed to sell that deal, and that was fine. We got the cash out of that. And my lease option, I stepped back from that deal and I said to my JV partners, look, do you mind carrying on doing the development yourself? I don't want any money or anything from it, but I just want to be able to walk away so that I can carry on doing what I enjoy. So you can see on the pattern, I've set up all these different things that I didn't really want to do. I just wanted to do deals and wanted to chase money, but I wasn't really getting anywhere with it. So I sat down, refocused again and thought, Emerald, what do you enjoy doing? I said at the beginning of this talk, I just wanted to build a property portfolio. That's what I enjoy doing, refurbing properties, letting them out, and that sort of happy days, set and forget. So that's what I did. I went over to South Wales. I set up a little sourcing company and I started doing buy, refurbish, refinance again, exactly the same model that I'd done in Liverpool, buying 2-3 bed terrace houses at a cheap price, doing them up, refinancing, getting the cash back out and moving on to the next deal. And I've been doing that successfully now, probably for the best part of 2.5 years, which is awesome because I've really managed to focus, which I hadn't done before. So for anybody that's sort of starting out there, thinking about what you're doing, maybe chasing 1 or 2 strategies, just focus on the one. Don't try and do too much because it's not really going to get you anywhere, and really focus on what you enjoy. So I moved up with my little 2 to 3 bed terrace houses now, and I'm working on bigger deals. I've got some semi-commercial properties that I've got in planning. I bought a block of 7 flats that we put in planning for that, and also refurbed some of those properties. And all of this has been done by joint venture finance and using other people's money. So I really wanted to focus a little bit on how I've managed to do that. I've always promoted myself using social media and gone out networking a lot. And throughout my whole journey, I wouldn't have been able to do any of these deals or anything without using the network around me and just getting to know people. Like I'm really a people's person. I love chatting to people. I love seeing what they're doing. I love networking. So it's just putting yourself out there. So I chased deals all the time. So I had something to give to investors, and I just went networking and showed people what I was doing. And people just seemed to invest from that. And I spoke about it a lot on social media as well. I think what really, really helps when you're looking to finance your deals is focusing on knowing your area, knowing your numbers really well and being confident in your strategy. It's much harder to raise finance and to get people to work with you when you're like, oh, well, I do SA over here, but I'm also doing buy, refurbish, refinance there. But if you want to do flips, then I'll do those as well. At the beginning of my journey, I was very, very much investor led. If an investor said to me, oh, I've got money for flips, I'd be like, that's cool. I can go and find flips. Or if an investor said to me, I want to buy and hold, I'd be like, that's cool, I can buy and hold as well. Whereas now I'm very much like, this is what I do. I buy properties, I refurbish them and I refinance them. I'm in it for the long haul. I JV with people once I get to know them. I borrow money off people that get in contact with me if I've got a use for it at the time. I'm much more confident and clear on what my strategy is, and I think that really, really helped it down my journey. When I got to about year 2 and I decided to go to South Wales and just really focus on buy, refurbish, refinance, that's all I spoke about. And even though I had other deals going on in the background, just focusing on speaking about one thing when you're out networking, when you're chatting to other people, really knowing those numbers, knowing that area. If anybody asked me off the cuff, I could tell you I can buy properties in South Wales for between 40 to 55 £60,000. I know they're going to refinance it 80 to £120,000. That's a much more investable process than sort of going around going, well, yeah, I can do whatever you want me to do if you've got the money. So that really, really helps. I got educated all the way through my journey. I've always spent time with people that are doing things, always asked the right questions, always been around people that are doing more than me. So attending networking events like this networking event's awesome. Just even listening to Will at the beginning talking about all his development loans, I pick up some information from that and I'm like, great, I can use this, I can educate myself, I can ask more questions. So that's really helped excel my journey as well. So those would really be my top tips on what to do, is be focused on your area, focused on your strategy, and just promote yourself using social media and networking. Has anybody got any questions that they would like to ask about anything I've said?
Emerald. Hi, Emerald. It's Rajesh here. A great presentation.
Oh, thank you.
I'm, although my sort of property journey, I used to be an estate agent, but now I'm a property journey. I was going to start 18 months ago, but things happened. But I was going to say, what's the best strategy you think if you had to start again from scratch? What would be the best strategy to build? Would it be property sourcing? Would it be rent to rent? Or would it be, because like you say, you need to choose one particular strategy rather than do everything? And I'm a bit like that. I say yes to everything, and then I realize I'm getting overwhelmed and frustrated, and so that's my question to you, basically.
What do I think is the best strategy? So I wouldn't say there's a best strategy. I think every single strategy works. It's what's best for you and what do you enjoy. Like serviced accommodation worked for me and I made really good money with my deals in Cheltenham, but I literally hated it. And I was like, I'd rather have a job than do this and deal with guests at 10 o'clock in the evening. So I think you need to take it back to, what do you want? Do you want cash flow now because you really hate your job? Or do you want to build a portfolio so that you can leave your job in a few years? Or have that as your retirement pot? Like, what is it that you're looking for from property?
Okay, all right, no, that's great. Thank you for answering.
Like deal sourcing creates pots of money, but do you enjoy finding loads of deals, chasing them and selling them to investors? Because if you don't enjoy that, your business isn't going to smash it, if you see what I mean. So for all the strategies I've tried, they all worked when I focused on them, but did I enjoy them? Sourcing for other people's all right, but I do enjoy the refurb process, but when I was sourcing and I had like 6-7 projects on the go, I didn't enjoy it because I was really stressed. So I much prefer building my own portfolio. So do I enjoy my direct to vendor work? Yeah, I do leaflets and stuff like that to get my own deals, but I don't do enough of it to get loads of deals to sell to other people. So even though I've tried every strategy, I've started eliminating them, going, well, actually, you know, I don't love that, so I'm not going to do it so much. However, that doesn't mean you turn money away. So I don't really source for other people anymore, but I had a really good deal come across my desk. It was a massive block of flats. It was like a £1.6 million deal. And those numbers frightened me, but I've got some really good friends that were like, actually, like that's exactly what they're looking for. It's a block of flats that had a good discount on it. So I literally just rang them up and was like, if you want this deal, that's cool. I'm happy to broker it for you. I just want to take 1%. So it's not like a blanket, I don't source anymore. If there's good money to be made, I'll make it, but I don't go out and chase that thing. Does that help your question at all?
Yeah, no, that's really clear. Thank you, Emma. Great presentation. Really inspired by your journey, because I'm sort of at that point starting my journey as well. Thank you.
Just pick one thing and go and do it and you'll be fine. I'm sure you'll be awesome. So Phil's asked a question in the chat, where do you find most of your BRRs now? I really utilize estate agents. So there's a couple of estate agents that I know quite well in South Wales. That's mainly where I buy my 2- and 3-bed terraced houses. I've just built relationships with them. They know that if I say I'm going to buy that, I am going to buy. It probably took me a couple of months to get them to really trust and believe in me. So that's where I find my BRRs. My projects in Gloucester, because Gloucester's a higher value area to South Wales. That's all direct to vendor. That's the only way that I can get the properties I want at the price that I'm purchasing at. So yeah, that's my two different. In Gloucester, I have to do direct to vendor work, otherwise I don't get a deal. In South Wales, you just smooth the estate agents enough. There's enough cheap properties going around that you'll pick one up eventually. So that is area dependent. I don't know where you are, Phil. Anybody else got any other questions you want to ask or anything you want to say? What would you say is your number one mistake and the one change you made that you're positively affected your journey? Okay, so the number one mistake I made would honestly be the shiny penny chasing, and just being a yes girl to every single investor. If you want HMOs, I'll do HMOs. If you want flips, I'll do flips. If you want to do development, then I can find you a piece of land. That was probably my worst mistake, and my journey really changed when I went, I'm not doing none of that. I'm just going to do buy, refurbish, refinance, because that's what I enjoyed. It's not that any of the other strategies were crap. So that's the biggest mistake I made, was the lack of focus. I think the change that positively affected my journey was really when I actually started believing in myself. So I needed a couple of deals under my belt, and then I was like, oh, actually this works. And I think if I'd have been a bit more positive from the beginning, then I don't know, maybe more investors would have come and joined me, because no one wants to work with someone that's like moaning, oh, I can't find any deals. It's like, you can find deals, you've just got to look for them. Or, oh, I can't find any money. You can find money, you've just got to go out and network and find people that want to work with you. So I think just being a positive person and just putting yourself out there really helps. I'm moving to the Wirral soon. Any tips for me? BRR is good and I like, and have an SA2. I will not source the deals in Wales, but Liverpool probably. Thanks for answering. Yeah, so the Wirral is great. When I was up in Liverpool, I actually spent a bit of time on the Wirral. If you want to do BRR or SA, I'd say just go and get to know your agents. The other thing that I used to do was, and it works quite well in Liverpool because a lot of people invest there, is go and get to know the other investors in your area. Because when I was trying to price out refurbs and stuff at the beginning of my journey, I literally had no idea what I was doing. And it was the investors that were already investing in Liverpool that really helped me nail down my numbers and understand which areas work. So if you're moving to a new area, I don't know how well you know the Wirral, Phil, but I'd say network with the investors that are investing where you want to buy. Just become friends with them and try and help them if you can, and they'll help you in return, and that will make your knowledge of the area grow much quicker than doing it on your own. Thank you. I hope that answers your question, by the way, Phil. Great presentation. What property training did you find most useful? Did you do many property courses? So I was like a course junkie at the beginning of my journey. I wouldn't recommend everyone doing that. I'd recommend finding one course, so whichever strategy that you, if you go, you know, and learn a little bit about all of them, do the free taster days, find one strategy that you're going to go all in for, and maybe do a course on that. I'm not here to promote anybody, but I did do the majority of my training with Progressive. I think all of the training companies are much of a muchness. They all teach the same thing. So it's whoever you resonate with the most, or whether you can just network with people in your area that can help you out. The thing that I found the best about the courses was actually the network, because the information they provided to you, you can actually learn from a book or whatever. But it was the networking that really helped me. So if I was you and you're really considering spending money on a course, go and find one where the networking is going to be great. Not to like try and offend anyone in the room, I don't know if anyone sells courses, but if you're at a deal packaging course, there's probably less money in the room than if you're, say, at a course that teaches you to develop. Because people that are packaging deals normally or sometimes are either experienced investors that are packaging deals because they've got too many of them, or investors that don't have any money and they want to package to build up their pots for deposits. So for me as a networker, that's what I enjoy doing. The rooms I got the best value out of were the rooms that I could either sell deals to. If you're in a deal packaging room, you can't sell your deals to other deal packages, if you get what I mean. Or rooms that I could raise finance in. So it's trying to utilize whatever group you're going for whatever it is that you need. Do you have any tips for knowing your numbers? I'm just checking I haven't missed a question. Knowing your numbers, to be honest, this is going to sound like a really silly answer, but the more you do them, the better you get at them. So the more time you spend chatting to builders or service accommodation providers or whichever strategy it is that you're thinking of doing, the more time you spend stacking those deals and the more time you spend with people that are doing those deals, the better your numbers are going to get. I'd also recommend, like, I used to just jot my numbers down on a bit of paper and be like, nah, that's fine, you know, probably rewires, probably like £3,000 maybe. Like, my numbers were really not on point, whereas now I've got a spreadsheet and every single refurb I've gone, I can average that out and look at what I've actually paid for stuff in a particular area, because your numbers are area dependent as well. So just the more knowledge you've got, the better your numbers are going to be, the better your deals are going to stack. So it's just learning it. Thanks, Em. I know a little thanks. Hi, Ahmad. How did you find your joint venture property investor? What's the best method for attracting joint venture property investors? So I found mine at a networking event. Like, I was really cheesy at the beginning when I was looking for JVs. I literally had this offer accepted on this deal, and I just took this deal in a little pamphlet round this group of networking people. I wouldn't do that these days, and was just like, have a look at my deal. I've had an offer accepted. I don't have any money. Like, do you want to buy this deal off me? And eventually, and I found this a lot actually with sourcing deals. I've tried to source them to people and they're like, no, actually, do you want a JV with me? So I tried to source a block of 7 flats to someone. They'd already bought a couple of smaller deals from me in the area. And I was like, look, this block of flats is an awesome deal. And they just said, that's way too big for me. I'd rather JV with you on it. So just spend time with people and let them know that you can either source deals or that you can JV. I find with joint ventures and with raising finance and with packaging deals to people, if you don't tell people what you're doing or ask for what you need, then you're never going to get it. What's the best method for attracting joint venture partners? Everyone needs to know who you are, what area you work in, what sort of deals you do, and what you stand for. So whether you utilize social media or networking events, and you know, from this networking event, I hope you will gather, like, I'm Emerald, I do buy, refurbish, refinance, and I do that in South Wales. You want to be that person for your area, whatever that is, whether it's rent to rent, SA, HMOs, it doesn't matter, but you need people to know that, because then you'll become the go-to in the area. And then anybody that wants to JV on HMOs in wherever you are, they're going to come to you. So just be out there, let people know who you are and what you do, because if they don't know, then they can't work with you or invest. I live not far from you. Do you mind if I contact you? No, feel free to contact me. That's cool. Where did you begin your network journey? So I used to go to business events. I used to go to the BNI. I used to go to 4N. I used to go to all the PPNs. I used to go to all the progressive events, the multiple streams of property income, Samuel Leeds Crash Course, any event that had property or business people, I was there. And probably for the best part of 18 months, maybe a year, I networked every single week and posted on Facebook nearly daily. And that's what it took for me to get to having no properties, no knowledge, and no investors, to sort of over 20 properties, hopefully a little bit of knowledge, and some investors that I can work with now. It really took that hard graft at the beginning of my journey of going out and meeting people. So yeah, just go out and network in your local area, business events, property events, just get out there really. Would you know of any lenders that specialise, can help with finance for SA houses, not holiday lets, but short-term contractor lets? Thanks. Yeah, there's a couple of different lenders that do that. The lenders don't like the term SA, but they are basically holiday let products. So I've got a list of about 10 lenders that will lend on those. So if you've got something in mind, just drop me a message and I can have a look at your deal for you. We've done that one. Home or I live not far. Yeah, Simon, get in contact. How do you find good and cheap builders? Good and cheap do not go in the same sentence. I would pick good over cheap all day, every day. You get cheap builders, you basically pay twice. Good builders though, I use the local networking, not the local Facebook group. So whichever area you invest in, if it's out of area to you, then join their, you know, like the free for sale or wanted Facebook groups or the whatever Facebook groups. I'm in all of those for the area that I invest in. I can sometimes pick up tenants for there. I know what's going on locally, and I meet builders and stuff there. And then if you get one good builder, like I met my electrician and he's been a godsend, and he introduced me to a scaffolder that knows some really good people. They both introduced me to a really reliable plumber, who they all introduced me to painter and decorators. So use anyone that you know is a builder, and get them to recommend, because normally they work in little groups and they prefer to work with people that they know anyway. If you're in your local area, I just use my local network when I do anything locally, like Gloucester wise. I use friends from school, people I know down the gym, people from my old rugby team, anything like that, where you know people, then yeah, that's how you find good builders. Do you have a virtual assistant? If how do you find one? How to get stuff done with little time, e.g. networking is so time consuming. Yeah, 100% agree with that. I don't have a virtual assistant. I'm the most useless systems technical person you will ever meet. So anything like that, I'm like, no, I can't do that. So how do I find time to get stuff done? I get up really early in the morning. I'm a morning person. So I get up in the morning, I'm in the gym by 6, I'm back home by 7, and I get a load of my own sort of property admin done first. I try not to let my own properties because that's too much admin for me. Networking is time consuming. I don't have an easier way to condense that. I'd say utilize social media more. Like, it doesn't take that much of your time to post on Facebook every day. So if you can't get to that many networking events, make sure you're networking online at times that suit you. Great answer. I hope that helps you with I don't know, condensing time. I enjoy networking, so I don't really find it time consuming, which helps. But like admin, I find time consuming because I hate it. So horses for courses, I suppose. Great answers, Emerald. Thanks. How can I contact you about the lenders you mentioned? Add me on Facebook or Instagram, drop me a message. I'll give you my phone number and we can have a conversation on the phone. Do you manage all your trades separately or build a project manager? That's a great question. Anything little, like less than 10 grand, I generally manage all of the builds myself. So like my little BRRs in Wales, if it's just like new kitchen, new bathroom, lick of paint, a bit of tartanette, maybe a new door, that sort of thing, I'll manage that all myself. My bigger projects, like what I've got going on in Gloucester, my planning permission on one flat, and then the 2 above it we're converting. We've had to get like a new water thing from Severn Trent. We've had to get building control in because one of them's got planning permission. I don't manage that. I've got a builder that manages the whole lot. So I think that's down to you and your capability, Alison. Like, what do you feel comfortable doing? When I did the stuff in Liverpool and I didn't have a clue, I had a project manager that did everything on all of those 5 little houses because I needed that sort of help. But as I've learned, as I've sourced more, as I've worked with other investors, I feel more confident now to manage the little projects myself. So just do whatever feels comfortable for you. What non-property networking meetings do you recommend? This is going to sound like a weird one, but try and do stuff that's like not actually networking. Like, I don't know if you're into golf, like one of my business partners raises us loads of money at the golf course, or like the gym. I find really good networking with non-property people. It's just going to the places, seeing the same people, and they need to be places where there's sort of a professional caliber of people. If you're looking for actual networking events, BNI's all right. I've done that. I used to do For Rent. I don't do that anymore. And that's, I suppose, the only non-property networking events. Entrepreneurs events, sometimes they're quite good. If you're in like entrepreneurs groups in Facebook, then they might do like entrepreneurs networking events where you can attend those. They've normally got quirky names. They're not so much like a monthly thing like the pins and PPNs are. So just anywhere where you can meet like-minded groups of people, really. I utilize social media for mine, LinkedIn, Facebook, one of those. They'll have groups where you can go and meet people. They're probably quite awesome. But it's about you as well and finding your people, whatever works for you. Have I answered everyone's questions? I hope I haven't missed anyone, because if I have, then just add it in the box. If not, then I can. Do you do JVs on an interest only for them? No. So if I do JVs, then it's 50-50. They put the money in, I do the work, we both own the company and the property 50-50. I don't do that on smaller deals because the numbers just don't work for that. if I do anything like interest only, then people just lend me money. So it's a minimum of 50 grand, 10% per annum. I'll pay them monthly for that. So that's the interest I'll do on that. Did you do training on social media? No, I didn't do training on social media. I just sort of found my own way. I wouldn't say I'm amazing at it. I just post on there consistently. That's the best advice I can give you. Talk about what you know, what you've learned, how you can help people, and just be consistent, posting daily, comment on other people's, answer questions, just be a good person, chatting to people, and you'll get there with social media. You'll build some traction over time. Nothing happens quickly. How did you find your solicitors that are quick and thorough? Okay, so if I take on a new solicitor that I want to use a lot, I go and meet them in person. So my first solicitor in Liverpool, every single document he wanted to send me to sign, he would be like, should I send that to you in the post? And I'll be like, oh, no, don't send anything to me in the post. I'll pop into your office. And he probably thought I was a right weirdo, but I built up a rapport with him because he got to see me like once a week. And then he was really good. And the same thing with my solicitor that I use in South Wales. I literally just kept popping into the office to sign anything, have a chat with him. It also helps the more business you do, which I know is hard when you're starting out, but the more business you do with them, then the better or more of a rapport you build with them. So like my Wales solicitor, he's literally awesome, and I can WhatsApp him questions now, WhatsApp him legal packs, and he'll give me the lowdown on what I do and don't need to avoid. But bearing in mind, I'm probably 4 years into my journey and I've used the same solicitor for 2 of those years. So I know it's not the answer that you want to hear, but things like that take time. To build your power team, as people call it. Use the people, recommend the people, and eventually you'll find that they're quick and thorough for you. Hopefully that answers all your questions. Oh, thank you everybody for saying it was a great talk. Hopefully it was useful. I'll hand you back to Dan, Will and Helen now. Oh, if you have full time, what tips to do everything with little time? Just do what you can in the time that you've got. You know, don't compare yourself to others. Don't worry that someone's doing 10 deals and you're doing 1 deal. It doesn't matter. Everybody's journey is different. If you've got half an hour a day, do your best with your half an hour a day. If you've got 10 hours a day, do your best with those 10 hours. It doesn't matter really. Just do what you can.
Thank you, Emerald. That was
That's
awesome.
right.
I knew it would be. An inspiration.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no, I think people really appreciate when they hear a journey from the beginning, because sometimes you can see all these people being successful and it seems like they did it overnight, and it's not always the case. So brilliant. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
And now back to us. Dan, I just need to speak about the WhatsApp group, don't I?
Yeah, so if anyone wants to join the WhatsApp group, what I'll do is I'll put a link in the chat now, and you just have to click the link and press join.
It is great, because if you've met anyone here tonight and you want to get hold of them, obviously WhatsApp's so quick.
There you go.
Brilliant, thank you. Is there anything else, Dan, before Mark comes on? I don't think so.
No, I think that's everything. I think we're good to go on to Mark now.
Cool, we're running in good time then. Yeah, so next it is Mark Lloyd, who will help you fund every deal or tell you how to do it. Thank you.
Okay, let me just share screen. Hi guys, great talk, Emerald. Love that. I love hearing stories of people. Seems such a long time ago since I did that, but I'll kind of fill in a few gaps tonight. So let's see if I share. That'll do, I think. Okay, hopefully you can see my screen. Is there, Dan? Yeah, okay, cool. So 5 things you need to know to succeed in property in 2021 and how to fund every deal. Quite a bold statement, particularly after listening to Emerald and sorry, I can't remember the guy's name because I'm not William, wasn't it? William, a little bit earlier. So some of the things I'm going to talk about will cross over. But before I do that, let's take a look at what's happening in the market today and see how that's going to affect us. Firstly, property prices at an all-time high. Sure, we're all aware of that now. Isn't it roughly 10%, I think, year-on-year increase since last year? Of course, we've got to take into account that last year there was very little increase. So, you know, if you take it back to the last full year, 2019, is it that much of an increase? But we are at an all-time high. Repossessions, on the other hand, all-time low. And of course, there are a couple of reasons for that, but the main reason for that is the furlough. And that may well change, obviously, when the furlough scheme ends in September. Stamp duty reductions, part of the contributory factor to the large increase in prices, but not the only factor. And of course, that's partly been reduced now, and that again will reduce in September. So what's going to be the effect of that? And of course, rents are an all-time high outside of London. London's, I think, is unique in that particular area because London market has generally been depressed for the past 2.5-3 years anyway, and rents had hit too high levels, so they had to come down at some point. But in the other areas of the country, they're now reaching all-time highs. So I said the furlough scheme ends in September. Now, what's going to be the effect of that? Well, I think that whatever political leanings you might have, unfortunately, we will see an increase in unemployment. I don't think it's going to be as bad as it was, because the spike we're seeing at the moment with the massive increase in jobs being taken up is going to negate some of the redundancies that are going to happen in September. But it's not going to grow at a fast enough rate to stop those happening. So I think there will be a number of job losses come the end of September. So towards the end of this year into January 2022, we'll see unemployment starting to increase. And whenever unemployment increases, that has a knock-on effect on house prices as well. Mortgage holidays have ended. Those that were able to take a mortgage holiday or did take a mortgage holiday, whether they're residential home buyers or buy-to-let landlords, then those have ended as well now. So those, in particular, in terms of the residential market, will often probably have been people that were on the furlough scheme that took advantage of that. So that's also building up for a potential knock-on effect come the end of the furlough scheme. And the Section 24 tax is starting to bite. So for the new investors don't know what that is, George Osborne, the then Chancellor, introduced the Section 24 tax about 5 years ago, which basically made it not very attractive to purchase properties in your own name. Prior to that, it was very attractive to purchase properties in your own name because there was major tax benefits of doing so. But that benefit was taken away by the Chancellor, so that if you were or are a higher rate taxpayer, then you will actually be paying more in tax likely than the rental you're receiving. So that's why a lot of investors now have transferred or started all of their recent purchases within a limited company structure because it doesn't have that Section 24 tax to worry about. But there are a lot of portfolio landlords, historic portfolio landlords, who have large portfolios and they are stuck. So what do? They either keep them and get penalised as a higher rate taxpayer, so they're actually going to be paying out more in tax than a lot of the rentals they're receiving, so they're starting to lose money. Do they transfer into a limited company where they're going to incur a substantial capital gains tax bill and stamp duty bill? There are potentially ways around that, but that would take them a couple of years to get around that. Or do they sell? And a lot are actually selling up. They've just had enough of, they've seen their, a lot of the benefits of being a buy-to-let landlord have been eroded over the years from when they started. Now, if you've just started over the past couple of years, you don't know any different. So it's a level playing field as far as you're concerned. But if you were investing 20 years ago, 10 years ago even, and you've seen all these changes happen, you will have noticed that actually that what was being a buy-to-let landlord, has a lot of the benefits of that's been taken away. Although I think it's still good today. So, you know, but they are looking to sell up. So I think what we will see towards the end of this year and into 2022, there will be a slowing down of prices, possibly a slight correction in some areas. We've already seen a slowdown in the south, which is where I'm based. As I said, around London, I think London, in the top 65 cities around the country in the year to May, London was number 63 and 64. Central London and outer London were 63 and 64. One grew at some outside London was 2%, I think it was. In central London, it actually prices fell by roughly 0.5 to 1%, whereas the highest performing city in the past year was I think it was Rotherham with just over 10%. So and I think if you look at the top 10 properties, 9 of the top 10 were all in the north of the country. The only southern town was Hastings. So what does this all add up to? Well, I think it adds up to a massive opportunity we're going to get over the next 6 to 9 months. We've had good opportunities already, even with the stamp duty happening, because I'm a firm believer that properties for the long term, you buy them today regardless, because even if you buy and properties drop, the whole thing about property is that you benefit in the longer term. It's not for short-term investing, unlike shares. So, opportunity. Let me just introduce you to me and my team. Peter. Peter is a former estate agent, had his own estate agency for 22 years, sold the shares in that about 5-6 years ago when he joined myself and Jackie. Jackie has been my business partner now for 28 years. We've set up and run 6 businesses together, and 2 of those we sold. One we lost, unfortunately, due to changing market conditions, and the other one's just wasted away as the product diminished. And then myself, I've been in business for 33 years now. As you've just heard, 28 years of those with Jackie. We only started investing 16 years ago. Bought our very first buy-to-let up in the northeast. No particular reason why it was the northeast. I mean, we lived in the south. It makes common obvious sense to buy in the northeast. It was cheap. It was off an email from somebody we'd never met, and we thought it sounded like a good deal. We were running a telecommunications company at the time, and it was in the days of kind of no money down, literally no money down strategies, and it seemed like a good thing. We then bought overseas in what was then supposed to be the next Spain, Bulgaria, and we bought an apartment on the Black Sea. That was quite good. I mean, we holidayed there quite a lot. Didn't rent very much, but we holidayed there quite a lot, and eventually sold it to a Russian with a cash case full of euros. And we started training. Did our very first training in 2009, which was with the Rich Dad organization. Became mentors with them about a year later, to our utter astonishment. But we were teaching new investors at the time. And then we left promptly after that, didn't like the way they operated, and decided that we would just go off and build our own portfolio. But what happened was we had a lot of people following us, and we were approached a number of times to run a training event. So we did eventually succumb and put on a one-day mastermind day event, which proved to be so popular that we then ran that for a day every single month for the next 12 months. And finally then ended up setting up our training company, which was Property Master Academy, where we primarily specialize in mentoring rather than training. Mentoring is about getting results. Training is just training. So that's us, and quite a large portfolio, 3 main areas of the country, Scotland, Northeast and Southeast. We have over 60 units, and that's kind of pretty stable now. We haven't really added much over the past couple of years, but we are looking at other things, which I'll come on to later on. So I was trying to think of what kind of questions new investors ask, and I try and I know some of you are new, some of you not, so hopefully you can bear with me, the more experienced ones. So how can I start when I have very little money? I only have X amount. What do I do after I've got my first, second or third property? Where do I get the next property? How do I do it? How can I build passive income? And how do I get funding? I think there are a lot of the main questions that new investors start with, because they appreciate they can learn strategies and people can mentor them, but it's the money aspect that often throws people. So I'm going to cover some of that tonight. But what do you need to be successful in property? Well, I think there are 5 main things. Firstly, knowledge. So the main difference between myself and some of the more experienced investors in the room tonight is that we just know more. Been doing it a bit longer. We've just got that knowledge that perhaps you as a new investor don't have. So we're talking about strategies there. Financing, which obviously I'm going to spend a little bit of time on tonight. You need to understand financing. It is a key aspect of property, as Emerald said. I mean, the number of JV partners she's worked with, so understanding finance is key. Legal structures, how you set yourself up. Now, not a qualified lawyer or accountant. These kind of things that should be discussed with those people, but I've touched on those from my experience this evening. Deals, clearly being able to find the deals. I'm still amazed that people struggle to find deals. There are so many deals out there, and it's just dependent on what your criteria is. And lastly, your reason. What is your reason for actually doing what you're doing? You know, what gets you out of bed in the morning to push you forward? Because a lot of people, when they're starting property, it's either to change their lifestyle and get out of their job, or it's to supplement pension and provide a legacy for their children, grandchildren, and so on. So whichever end of the spectrum you are, you've got to have that reason to push you forward. Otherwise, it just won't happen, in my experience. So I'll just touch on some of these briefly, again, more for the benefit of the newer people. So understanding strategies, I've kind of put these into income and capital strategies, just to simplify things and go quickly down them. So buy-to-let, one, the foundation of property investing, and has been around obviously for donkey's years, and is probably one of the more hands-off type of strategies. It's never ever passive. Anybody that tells you property is passive is lying. There is no such thing, in my opinion, of passive income in property. It still needs some involvement. You can get close to it, but the most passive I've ever had was when I had my telecommunications company, and I didn't need to be there. That was it. You know, the customers still paid their bills, and we still got paid. Houses of multiple occupancy, again, definitely not a hands-off strategy. Relate that to student housing if you're not familiar with what HMOs are. But lease options. Now, this is a controlling strategy. So you're not buying the property, you're just taking control of the property, benefiting from income and capital growth. Rent to rent is also a controlling strategy where you're renting a property, re-renting it back out for a higher amount, and keeping the margin in between. Now, controlling strategies are extremely popular, primarily because of the low capital input within them. Then we've got sourcing. Sourcing, I think, is a fantastic strategy for anybody starting out and experienced investors too. Why? Because you just view lots of properties, you get meet lots of people, you put lots of offers in, and let's face it, at the end of the day, properties like any other business, right? The more numbers you do, the more offers you do, the more properties you do, the more chance of you have of offers being accepted. And so sourcing is a fantastic strategy. In my first year of sourcing, we earned just under £100,000. Peter, who has an HMO sourcing business in Surrey, Hampton, Berkshire, his business this year will turn over £500,000 just on sourcing alone. And then we've got commercial property. Now, commercial property is not often done by residential investors, and that's usually due to lack of understanding. Because if you understood commercial property, you'd probably think, why on earth do I do residential? Because commercial property is a lot closer to passive income than you could possibly imagine. Why? Because the tenant on a commercial property, generally speaking, will be paying the maintenance and the insurance, whereas on a residential property, you're paying for the maintenance, you're paying for the insurance, and anything else that happens to property. When a commercial property is the tenant's responsibility, so the rent you get is the rent you keep. And because commercial tenancies are 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years, that's literally it. It's collecting the rent. So pretty much a very, very passive income, and probably the closest to passive in property terms of all the strategies available. So that's only a few of the income producing strategies I've put there. There are other variants which I could spend ages on, but I won't. Capital ones, obviously flipping, buy to sell, where we're looking to buy, add value, then sell. Some of the things that Emerald was talking about, the VRR type model. Only we're not actually refinancing on this instance, we're just going to sell. Trading, so property trading is basically buying a property in one market, selling it in another for a higher margin. Very similar if you think of like second-hand cars, where they buy a second-hand car off a seller, and then they put it into their showroom or lot or whichever and sell it at a higher price. And they've really done nothing to the property apart from possibly polish it. Well, here, that's really what we're talking about. We're buying a property at one price and selling it for a higher price in a different market. Thirdly, development. Now, development covers lots and lots of things, all the way from basic refurbishment through to land and new development. So a big, big area, often considered to be the riskiest of all strategies. It's not as risky as number 2, by the way. But it is certainly very high returns. A strategy called Freehold Leasehold. I haven't got a great deal of time to go into that tonight, but essentially it's where a house has been converted into flats without planning, and there's an opportunity to create a margin there. And similarly with short leases, where a lease has less than 70 years to run on it, it's very difficult for you to get a mortgage on it. So there's an opportunity to create a capital uplift there if you know what you're doing. And then lastly, something called land assembly, which is a part of development side of things, but it's a way of packaging different plots of land together to create value, get planning and sell without actually owning the land. So that's a basic understanding of some of the most popular strategies. As I said, there are quite a few more. I mean, for example, with lease options, I know there's at least another 50 different types of option strategies. So there's only one there. Legal structures, as I mentioned, there's different ways of holding property. All of these I've done. Sole proprietorship, LLP, which is a limited liability partnership, and limited company. It used to be that sole proprietorship was the best way, or partnership of holding property, because of the tax benefits. That's no longer necessarily the case unless you're a basic rate taxpayer, in which case it's no real difference. But for the majority of investors, they now purchase through a limited company, and there are many benefits of doing that. But so you need to talk to a property accountant. One thing I would add, though, is do you want to control properties or own them? And if any of you've actually read the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book, Robert Kiyosaki actually says in there, control everything and own nothing. Because by controlling something, you can create and add more value, receive more from it than through ownership. But most investors want to own, and I've got both. I've got some controlling properties. I've also got quite a lot of properties that I own as well. But understanding legal structures is quite key to helping you. Also, by the way, getting funding will help you in one of these different structures as well. And obviously how to find deals. So a few areas there, estate agents being the most common. They control 95% of the market. So understanding how to deal with agents, as Emerald said, building that rapport relationship will help you in the long run without a shadow of a doubt. Something called administrators. Now, if you're not familiar with what administrators are, then administrators are where someone goes bankrupt and their assets are collected in, and an administrator is appointed to deal with them. And their role is to sell them for good value and pay off the debts. That's basically what their role is. And generally, an administrator is paid a fixed fee. So if they've got a large number of things to deal with, the last thing they want to be dealing with is an unusual property. For example, a care home, a large HMO, and I'm talking 7 beds plus, preferably 10 beds plus, because they're more difficult to sell through agents, through Rightmove, all those kind of things. So an administrator is more open to you as an investor approaching them and getting a good deal. And I'll show you an example of a deal that we did through the administrators. Don't come up that often, but they are very good contact. They will only deal with experienced investors, by the way. So newer ones, something you need to work up to, because what they want is they want proof that you can perform, and often will ask for an amount of money up front, so that if you drop out, you lose that money. So you are committed to the deal. Then we've got auctions. Not my favorite place to actually buy stuff. My favorite place to sell stuff, definitely. I mean, if we're going to sell something, whack it in an auction, particularly in the current market where things are just going through the roof. But, buying through auction, there are techniques, whether you buy pre-auction, post-auction, or you buy in what we call a wholesale auction, which is not the big ones, the Allsops and so on of this world, but the much, much smaller auctions, which have very, very few lots and very few people attending. And they're the great ones to attend if you can find them. And then we found over 32 different ways. So when we did this exercise with one of our mentorship groups, we found over 30 different ways of finding deals. So, most people still only stick with estate agents, and that's great if you've got a fantastic rapport with estate agents. But otherwise, start looking for deals. I don't get anything through estate agents at all, and I'll share with you some of those deals tonight. Then understanding finance. So there are 6 or 7 different ways of funding deals. The most obvious one is cash, clearly. Now, cash is king, whatever business you're in. Right? If you've got cash, you can negotiate discounts very quickly. You can obviously complete on a deal very, very quickly. So cash is always king. But for the majority of people, you might start with some cash, but you're going to need more. And what options are there? Well, obviously, we've got the most obvious ones: mortgages, buy-to-let, and commercial mortgages. And I heard Emerald say she's a mortgage broker now as well, so she's probably better qualified to talk about on those than I am. The buy-to-let mortgages, basic difference between the two. Buy-to-let mortgages are very much a tick box operation. If you satisfy their criteria, you get the mortgage. If you don't, you don't. Commercial mortgages, despite the name, it does apply to residential properties, but it's generally those larger residential properties like the 7-bed HMOs, like the block of flats, those kind of things, but not always. And they're a little more flexible. They want to know more about you, and they are open to if you have a CCJ as well. So if you have a problem with that, whereas buy-to-let mortgages, you've got a CCJ, that you definitely won't get a mortgage. Commercial lenders will actually look at it if there is a reason you can explain why you've got that CCJ. So a bit more flexible. However, the rates are more expensive as well, and the fees are more expensive. So it's kind of flexibility versus rate. Then we've got bridging finance, which we talked about a little bit earlier. Bridging is a great product. If you're flipping, if you're doing the BRR model, where you've got to buy the property, refurbish it, rent, refinance, and then repeat the process again. So bridging is great for that. Rates vary. I think the cheapest I've seen is around about 0.6, 0.65%, all the way up to, I think I saw one the other day, which was 7% a month. Now, that was an unusual one, but the average would be, average maximum is around about 2% a month. So flexible product, and it fits in certain circumstances. Government and local councils. Now, I don't know how many of you actually speak to your local councils and find out what grants or loans are available. So I can give you some examples of ones that we've had. So a couple of properties in the northeast, one in the south. In the northeast, we were carrying out a refurbishment of an old property. It wasn't unmortgageable. We were certainly able to get a mortgage on it, but it needed a complete refurbishment just to bring it up to date. And we got an interest-free loan from the local council for 5 years. And at the end of that 5 years, obviously that had to be repaid, but that allowed us to use that refurbishment money to go and do another property. So that was one example. Second example, the local council were doing what they call frontage improvements to properties in a particular road near to the town centre, wanted to make it look good, basically, because it was going to be a European city of culture. And so they were replacing front fences, front doors, windows, and roofs. Now, as the fencing and front door and windows had already been done by us, but the roof, this asked us if we wanted a new roof. We said, yeah, okay, we'll have a new roof. Totally free of charge grant. We didn't have to repay the grant at all unless we sold the property within a certain period of time, which we didn't. So that was a brand new roof on a property, which, it was an old property and probably going to have something go wrong with the roof at some point. So we had a brand new roof on there, free of charge, thanks to the local council. And then there's one in the south I can mention, which was in Guildford in Surrey, which is just down the road from where I live, right in the town centre, right in the city centre. And it was above the Tesco's Express there. So if you're familiar with Guildford, any of you, then you know where it is. And I was talking to the local housing officer for Guildford Council, and they were desperate for us to buy that property. Why? They were prepared to give a £60,000 grant towards refurbishing that property. And to top it all, they then wanted to rent it back for 10 years. Now, the refurbishment was actually over £100,000, but 60 grand grant, so it doesn't have to be repaid, was fantastic. So most investors do not speak to the local councils to find out what grants and loans are available. Now, they're not always available. They're sometimes available at certain times, and then they're withdrawn and then open up again. Up to you to keep up to date. The other thing I should add onto there is also the things like the eco commitment, where energy companies have to provide free installation particularly to benefit tenants, for certain types of tenants, mainly benefit tenants, where you can get free boilers, free loft installation, cavity wall installation, external wall installation, all those kind of things, free of charge, even if you're a landlord. So all these kind of things you should be aware of as an investor. I want to touch on crowdfunding very briefly. So we own a crowdfunding platform. We launched that about a year ago, and quite unique in the marketplace because it's international. We operate currently in 5 countries, and that's going to be increased to 10 by the end of this year. So those are UK, Netherlands, Germany, Sweden, New Zealand. And then in the pipeline, we've got Australia, Canada, USA, Mexico, and South Africa. And then the following year, we aim to add another 10 onto that as well. But we can essentially fund a lot of projects outside of those countries as well. We have an international investor base, over 1,000 investors in over 120 different countries around the world. So, a great place to raise money for a project, whether it's a refurbishment or all the way through to land and new build as well. And conversely, a good place to put money as well, a good secure place to put money where you can invest in a project and you'll get a good rate of return, similar to what you would get if you were an angel investor on a JV kind of deal. So, good options there and good way to spread your money, your investment, if that's the kind of thing you're into. But I'll come back onto the crowdfunding in a second. Something called a facility, not as available as it was a few years ago, but it's a facility is essentially an overdraft type arrangement where you approach the bank, usually a high street lender, with a business plan for your property business, explaining what it is you're doing, how much money you would like access to. Works with bigger amounts, 2 to 10 million, something like that. And we've managed to get funding for some of our mentees on this. It is generally more experienced investors that can get these, but it allows you to actually have almost like a fund to go and purchase properties with. The same lending criteria apply, by the way, so it's still going to be a loan to value based lending, but they will have agreed it in advance, whereas all the other strategies, crowdfunding, bridging, mortgages, you need to find the property first, get them valued, approach the lender, and hopefully they'll lend to you. Well, this is the other way around. They'll lend to you first, then you go and find the property. So much better option, but say not as many of those available nowadays. Joint ventures, which Emerald mentioned, extremely popular with investors and potentially a way of funding a deal 100%, as is crowdfunding, our crowdfunding platform, which I'll talk to in a second as well. So joint ventures. So two aspects of joint ventures. One is mistermed, really. One's more of an angel-like investment where they're lending you the money for a fixed rate of return. A true joint venture is someone who's sharing in the profit and loss, if there is loss, of that deal. So whether it's a buy to sell or buy to rent, where you're going to share with the ongoing profits of that particular venture. And then lastly, vendor finance, something that's not widely used in the UK. It's certainly used quite a lot in the States, but it is literally, as the name says, it's where the vendor helps you finance your deal. Now, this works where if you're dealing directly with the vendor and in the conversation, you find out that actually all they're really going to do with that money is stick it in the bank for a while. Now, if that's the case, you know they're only going to get a very low percentage in the bank. So you can have a conversation with them and say, look, I can actually pay you better than that for a period of time if you're happy to leave that money in the deal. So that can potentially, again, give you a no money down deal as well. And then there's a structure you need to follow with that. I haven't got time to go into it tonight, but you do need solicitors to understand what you're doing as well. So a little bit about the crowdfunding platform that we run. So it's run by investors. We're not bankers by any stretch of the imagination. Myself and a group of international investors came together to put this platform together. We are truly international, so I'm the only one based in the UK, but we have head offices in Rotterdam, where most of the staff are, but two of the directors are there. Got another director in Mallorca, another one in Germany, and one in Switzerland, and one in Sweden. So quite an international-based company. Now, we will also lend on the GDV, not the purchase price. We're not really interested what you paid for it. If you've got a good deal, fantastic. We're not going to penalise you for that. We will lend against the gross development value, so the sales value of the project. And that can be up to 80%. Usually for 80%, there would need to be additional security for that, but it is possible. We also do not deduct interest up front, like bridging lenders do. So you get the full gross amount of the loan, just less our fees that we charge, which we're totally transparent about those. We will lend from 6 months to 5 years on the project. Interest is paid monthly, although you can also have the option to roll it up. In terms of the rates that are paid, depends on the term, the amount, what the project is, but the rates vary between 8 and 12%. And our fundraise fee is 2.5%. There's a couple other little bits in there as well, but that's the basics of around it. Since this screenshot was taken, we've added another 1 million on the amount raised, and you can see how many registered users we have on the platform. Of course, that 3.25 million that we've raised doesn't take into account the 6 million, as you can see at the bottom of the screen, that we raised prior to the platform actually being launched. So, you know, a great way to raise money for projects, and within all those ones I've just described, you can fund the deal 100%. There's no question about that. All right, we are, from a crowdfunding platform, we are happy to look at 100% funding. It's rare that we give it, as I said, at the 80% GDV. Would need additional security, but if you've got that, then potentially you've got 100% funding. If not, you just find the rest for small balance from a joint venture partner. And if I give you a very simple example of a couple we've done recently, so one we're just doing at the moment, which is a small project in Liverpool where the purchase price is 150 grand, the refurbishment is £75,000, so they obviously need £225,000 in total. The end value is estimated at £320,000, and that's been certified by a RICS valuer. So the amount they want is well within the 80% that we could potentially lend. But because they didn't have any additional security, what we said is instead of the 225, we'll give you 210. So they've only got to put in £15,000, which really, in the overall scheme of things, is next to nothing. And then the second one, which is a project in Blackburn, which is just a straight flip project, and there we've lent 90% of the purchase price and costs. So they've only had to put in 10% of their own money to help complete that deal. So I thought I'd go through some sample deals just to show you all of the kind of no money down deals that I know have been done either through people that we've mentored or ourselves. So the first one is a rent to rent. Now I know I put on there minimal setup cost because that's generally what a rent to rent would cost you to set up. This was through one of our mentees who was very, very short of money, and they actually found a joint venture partner within our mentorship group who lent them the money. So for them, it was a no money down deal. And of course, cash flow on rent to rents, if done properly, can be very, very good in this example, which is just in Guildford, this one, at £1,200 a month. This one, the other end of the country in Hull, was one of ours. We found a joint venture partner for this who put in all the money. So there's no money down deal for us. And we split the cash flow and the growth in capital. So for us getting essentially £500 a month plus the growth in capital, all we had to do was find the property, arrange the refurbishment, which basically had a building team do that. So we didn't do that. And then we passed it on to our agent in the area. So nothing really to do there. So our involvement was very limited for what is producing an infinite return for us. This is in Scotland. We bought a portfolio up there, 38 residential properties, commercial property and a lettings agency as part of the deal, all for the princely sum of £750,000, but it was valued on the day of purchase at 1.35 million. So not only did we get a fantastic deal, but we're a JV partner that put in all the money. So a no money down deal for us, but look at the cash flow on that deal. That's an amazing deal for us. So we shared the profit on this one again, £4,500 a month essentially was ours for having essentially sourced the deal, negotiated it, been up there a few times and done a deal. So, you know, these things are all available. It's just learning how to structure them properly. This is one from the receivers. Receivers is another word for administrators. So this one, we were asked to put down a £30,000 commitment fee to the administrators. Otherwise, they would not hold the property for us because they wanted to sell it. And they know that in the way the English system works, that you put your offer in, you go through searches, you wait weeks and weeks and weeks, and eventually you find exchange contracts. Well, they wanted to make sure you're committed, so you had to put down, sign a contract that you're going to buy the property. You put in £30,000, and if you didn't buy the property, you lost it. Well, we were fine with that. This was actually a drugs den. That's what made it attractive. So we got quite a good price, 14-bed HMO, all with ensuite rooms. Again, done with a joint venture partner. You know, we didn't put any money in again. And look at the cash flow. So we're making £1,700 a month, or we were making £1,700 a month on that. And this one's now been sold at £650,000. So we made a healthy profit on that as well. And again, we met there a few times, got the right teams in place, and you know, great project. More local, Farnham in Surrey. This one was got through a land agent. Now this one actually is the one deal on here where we did put some money in. So we purchased it initially for cash, And then because it was an awkward plot, it had a tree preservation order on the entire site. We brought in some other investors and shared the cost. So I think our input was about 25,000, 30,000. In fact, what happened was we got planning on this much quicker than we could have anticipated because we had a fantastic team. But look at that profit, £320,000 in 12 months. That's how long that took us to do that. And we had a share of that, which I think our share on that was a third. So we made £100,000 on our £25,000 investment. So 400% return in 12 months. Not bad, eh? And this one is an option deal. And this is a land assembly in South London, where we've done a project where we're combining some different plots together to get planning and then potentially build on it. Paid the option fee. There are some fees here. Now, although we've paid those, but you could, approach someone to borrow the money, an angel investor, joint venture partner, to lend you the money for the architect's fees for a share of the profit. And then if you look at the profit, if you can't borrow the money from somebody for that, then you're doing something wrong. So this was sold to developer at £800,000 before build. So we sold it just with planning for a profit of 265,000. That took us 18 months for that. We had a slight issue on this one because the planning was refused initially without reason and not complying with planning law. So we took it to appeal and went through again first time. So 18 months. It should have been 12, but the planners were just being a bit arsey. And that's unfortunately what you have to deal with when you're dealing with land. Next, I want to show you just some of the deals we're currently working on, because although I run a training mentoring company, we often get a bit of bad press and say, why on earth are we doing training when surely we should be doing property deals? Well, just to show that you can do both. Obviously, I have a crowdfunding platform now which we run. We have the training mentoring company which we run, and we have our own property portfolio and deals that we do. So these are some of the deals we're currently working on, just to give you hopefully a bit of inspiration. So we've got a commercial to residential conversion in Berkshire. This is a no money down deal, again, direct to vendor with a GDV of 9.2 million. Profit is approximately 22% on that. So you can work out the maths, roughly 2 million. And so that one's direct to vendor. This is a guy, he's in his 70s, he's just looking to retire now, he doesn't want to keep the properties any longer. He's sold most of his properties, this is the last one, and he's open to a joint venture, so we're doing a joint venture with him. This one in Surrey with a GDV of 4.2 million. This is one Jackie's been working on for a while. It's actually a relative of hers, and finally agreed to sell in Guildford. So it's just down the road from us as well, which is fantastic. He owns a large plot with some back gardens that he's already bought from the neighbours. So we've got quite a reasonable sized plot, and we're doing it on option as well. So we're not having to buy the land at all until we get planning, which then it'll be much easier. And we may at that point bring in a joint venture partner to begin with, though we don't need to. We'll fund the planning costs, which won't be cheap. I mean, it's probably looking at £20,000 worth of getting it through planning. But again, if you couldn't afford the £20,000 yourself, you could quite easily find a joint venture partner that would help you fund that. So all these things can be done. And so obviously that's direct to vendor as well. Plot of land in Kent was a GDV of just over 6 million. It's a 6-acre site, about 24 units on that one. We've just got the second pre-app going through. Again, this is a joint venture deal with the landowner. So we've not had to buy the land, it's been done on an option. Just been extended that option because the lockdown last year delayed a lot of the surveys that we could carry out. So we've had to extend the option on that one. And then lastly, the biggest one we're working on is inside the M25 in Surrey. This is what was called a land banking deal done many years ago with 40 landowners, which we've now got all of those together. It's a 7-acre site. We've already got Barrett's interested in buying the plot for roughly 10 million. And so that one's currently just getting the option agreement signed. Literally tomorrow night, I've got a Zoom call with all of the plot owners to explain the option agreement and start getting signatures. So that one's very close to getting over the line. And then we'll be in negotiations with the developer, decide whether we're going to sell it to a developer or perhaps develop it ourselves. So just to give you a flavour of some of the things that we're actually working on. Last thing's mindset. I think, although I've left it as the last thing, I think it's probably the most important thing to actually have a positive mindset and understanding what does financial freedom mean to you. You know, you've got to have some kind of driving force. What you're going to do with your freedom once you got there. You know, I'm fortunate, I've been there a while, so I love what I'm doing. You know, I love doing the training stuff. I love doing the new business, which is the crowdfunding platform. I love finding deals. That gives me a kick. I don't want to retire. Why should I? I have no need to. What would your perfect day look like? And what drives you forward? And what's holding you back? You know, the mindset is the key to unlocking all those doors that you've just seen me talk about. So would you like me to show you how we can help you do the same? Which would you prefer? Trying to do everything on your own, trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, or going in the fast lane with people like us that have been there, done it, and are still doing it successfully? And then we have a great deal of experience on our side. As you heard, I've been doing this for 16 years now. So not just something I picked up yesterday, like a lot of people I see spouting their wares on the training market at the moment in particular. What's stopping you? Not knowing what or where to buy? We can help you with that. Unsure if the numbers add up? We can help you with that. Afraid not being able to rent out the property? We can help you with that to a degree. Worried about mortgage rates? Well, sorry, they're going to go up at some point. Don't know when, but they're bound to. We've been saying that for the past 10 years, but at some point they're going to go up. Scared of possible major repair costs? Again, we can help you with that. It shouldn't be an issue if you follow what we teach. Put off by complications and costs around tax. Well, if you're going to pay tax, I'll tell you what, guys, you're making money. Now, again, there are ways around that, so we can put you in touch with the right people. And don't have much or any money to start. Well, again, I've just shown you a number of different ways there. It doesn't matter, right? Not having money to start is just an excuse not to do anything. Okay, if you've got the mindset, the positive mindset, and the can-do kind of attitude, you can make this work, as Emerald has shown. So a few people we've worked with, Viv and Ray, they were on one of our very first mentorship groups, had very little money. They did the rent-to-rent strategy, and by the end of their first year, were on 12 grand a month. Giuseppe, he now teaches rent-to-rent. He has, I think it's 30 rent-to-rent properties of his own. But when his first year with us, he had ended up with 7 properties, producing over £5,500 per month and over 200 grand's worth of equity, all done part-time in less than 10 hours a week. Simon didn't want to do rental portfolios at all, didn't want to build a rental portfolio. He just wanted to build beautiful properties, in his words. So he went straight into development. Now, a lot of people think, or the thinking is, that you start with buy-to-lets and HMOs and all those kind of things, and you eventually work your way out to development. Well, Simon proved this wrong. He started with development and proved it could work. And that's why we've this year launched our first development mentorship, where we're teaching new investors development from day one. We've got Mathilda and Mahmood, probably our youngest couple, their very first year, did £1 million semi-commercial conversion, which made about £300,000 profit. And then more recently, these Sangita and Neil, 8 properties in Guildford, using very little of their own money, all achieved during lockdown. And then the other end of the country, Kate, up in Sunderland, achieved a 12-month goal of 4 properties within 5 months, and now has 8, all achieved during lockdown. These are all people that have been on our mentorship program over the past couple of years, Kate and Sangita and Neil just for more recently. So what's the opportunity? Well, we can help you grow your property business. If you want help, if you want to get into the fast lane and grow your property business to 6 figures, or from 6 to 7 or 8 figures. Why? Because we've done that and we can show you how to do it too. The kind of people we like to work with, you need to be able to commit some time. You need to be able to give your commitment. You need to be coachable. You need to have a strong why, be open-minded, and have money to invest. Now, I know I've shown you ways there where you don't need a great deal of money, but there's no fact. Got to face facts, guys. You need money. Now, clearly, it doesn't need to be yours. So, you know, but that's what you're going to need. So we're running a 2-day property investing masterclass. This is aimed mostly at newer people. Although if you have got some experience, you're still going to learn some things, but it's mostly for new people. It's the 14th and 15th of August. We're doing it virtually, I presume, so it doesn't matter where you are in the country. Obviously, we're going to spend a bit of time on mindset, establishing whether you consider yourself to be an investor or a landlord and what those differences are and why it can affect your growth one way or the other. talk about different types of tenants, and then we go into the number of strategies that I've just mentioned a little bit earlier. I'm going to cover all of these over 2 days. All right, we're not going to go in depth, obviously, because someone did ask me that question, how can you possibly do that in 2 days? But we've done it many, many times in 2 days. But we give you the basics of these strategies to help you essentially get started. Finding deals and motivated sellers, the most important part, 2 important parts, front and end, mindset and finding deals and motivated sellers. Worth over £2,500, we charge just £197 plus VAT. That's it. If you wanted to book that, there's the link. If you want to have a chat with me, a strategy call instead or in addition to, then there's a link to schedule a call with me there as well. More than happy to talk to you about property strategies, developing a business, property finance, whatever it might be. And that's me done for now. Happy to answer questions. So let me go quick back over some of the chat to see.
Got any questions, anybody? That
Mark,
was really interesting. The deals you have done with no money. It's unbelievable.
Well, it just goes to show. I mean, as I said at the very beginning, the only difference between me and some of you that are listening tonight is experience and knowledge.
Yeah.
I just know that much more. I've done that many more deals. So structuring them and putting them together, is what makes the difference. The rest of it is, finding the deals. Anybody can find a deal. And I know, probably some of those ones there you think, well, how on earth did you forget those? The Kent one, I'll tell you, came to us through somebody that attended that 2-day training course. And he couldn't afford our mentorship. And I said, I'll tell you what, you find me a deal, I'll give it to you for free. So that's where that deal came from.
Amazing.
The Guildford one I told you is from Jackie's relative. The Berkshire one was from a contact of mine that said, look, I've got this deal in Berkshire, you're interested? I said, yeah, let me go and meet, and you meet directly with the vendor. And Surrey one was one we've been working on for a number of years. So, it's from 9 till 5, Simone, the training. So regular breaks. So we have a break every hour and a half.
Mark, I know I asked you, if I can't make the August or September one, have you got one in October, or have you got dates for September? Because I'll work week.
I haven't got a date yet for September. Probably won't do September because I'm off to Spain in September.
Okay.
So
October
is quite likely. If the property investor show goes ahead, which I can't remember the dates of that, I think it's the second weekend of October, then we will be at the end of October for the next one.
If we can't attend live, would there be a replay for it? I know you can't ask the same question.
The next one will be a live course, won't be done virtually. So that
it'll be a live course. All right. Okay. All right. Okay.
That will be done at Heathrow, which is where we usually hold our events. So yeah, we won't. If we can find a way to stream it, we will do. But I've seen some people stream courses, and they've just not looked as good. So not as good as the live thing anyway.
But this one on the 14th, 15th is a live stream one, is it?
The virtual one. It's a virtual one, yeah.
Virtual one.
Yeah. Right. Was there any?
I'm sure they'll all think of questions when we've disappeared. Dan, are we able to share the details again? I don't know.
Bring them up again if you want.
Just gives time for people to take a screenshot or click.
Let me find the last slide. There you go. Can you see that?
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah. So yeah, if you want to book a call with me, more than happy to have a chat. Or if you want to attend the course, whichever.
Brilliant. Thank you, Dan. You've got it in the chat.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Yes, Pranash, be the same price.
Oh, sorry, Mark, one more question. The 14th and 15th, say if we book for that, but we can't attend the virtual, would there be a replay for that? That's what I was going to ask. Actually, that was my original question.
Yes, the idea is that there will be. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Then.
I've never recorded something over a Zoom for a day, so I don't know whether it'll work or not.
All right. I'll book another call with.
They have limits on their cloud storage, so I don't know whether it'll work, but we're certainly happy to try.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it.
No worries.
I got rid of the chat now. Oh, it's there.
I don't. Yes, Wanda. Most, if not all of that, works in the States.
You mentioned you were global, didn't you, for something?
Yeah, for the crowdfunding.
Yeah.
So, what? As long as so, I was asked the other day actually whether we could fund a project in Mexico, and as long as the developer is based in the UK, then yes, we can. So as long as they have a company in the UK, we will fund a property in Mexico or wherever. As long as they're based in the UK, Netherlands, or Germany, which are 3 main countries, then we will fund a project in any other country. And now with New Zealand means we can fund a project in Australia before Australia will come on board, and then parts of Asia will be open as well. The main requirement really is that they have a modern land registry system that we can register a first charge. If it's all down to deeds, which a lot of the Caribbean is, the answer is a big no. Ireland, Pranesh, yep, we've been asked about that as well. As long as the developer investor has a UK company, is based here, even though they might be doing the project in Ireland, then we will certainly look at funding it. We're talking to people in Northern Ireland, so I don't see any reason why we can't actually fund Southern Ireland. The only difference is, of course, legal systems, and it's a different country to the UK, not Southern Ireland. But as long as someone is based either in Northern Ireland or England, Scotland, and Wales, then yes, we can fund it. Yeah, book a call with me. Oh, Dan, yeah, mindset. Was there one moment you're doing that caused a change in your mindset? Actually, my mindset has been like it has been for a long time. Not anything to do with my property journey, but actually to do with my upbringing. And that's why when I've spoken previously on some podcasts and social media, I've mentioned a bit about my how I was brought up and what actually affects the way I am. And I think, you know, you can be made into an entrepreneur, because I think it's down to the environment you're in. If you're in the right environment, you can be made into an entrepreneur. And I was made into an entrepreneur at a very young age, not because my parents were entrepreneurs, far from it. I was actually brought up in a broken family. And the one thing that stuck in my mind was being told that I was no good for anything and would never achieve anything. And that stuck in my mind my whole life. And even now, whilst to some people I appear successful, to me, I'm not. So that's what drives me.
It's crazy. Yeah, I definitely need to know more about this. I'm getting there slowly. Brilliant. Have we got any more questions, guys?
Yeah, I've got
people are going to have to
one last question. One last question. Sorry,
you only had 3, Marge. You had them.
Yeah, I know. I was just going to say, if you started in property again, and I know I asked this question to Emerald as well, but if you were new to property and you had to start all over again, or if you're totally new, you know, you'd been successful in other businesses, and then you wanted to go into property, what is the one strategy you would use, do you think, that would enable you to grow back to the level of success that you've got now? Or even if it wasn't that, but you'd be able to get cash flow and allow you to achieve your financial freedom figure, is what
I'd do one of 2. I'd do development and I'd do commercial property.
Development, commercial property. Okay, yeah. All right. Thank you.
Because I firmly believe, so I've worked with a guy that was a developer for a number of years. and he went bankrupt at the last crash. And you would think he won't go and do development again. No, he went straight back to doing development, and is now very, very successful. Didn't do rental at all. He built a rental portfolio by doing development, by buying, good discount, refurbishing, or building, keeping some, selling some, and the ones he kept obviously rented out. And he built a substantial portfolio of 150 odd properties in a very short period of time. So that's why I would do development. And what most people don't realize with development is that if you are taught correctly, for one, but if you do your figures correctly, you build in a monthly income into your project. So actually your project pays you every single month, not at the end. You get paid at the end as well.
Any more questions? I don't think so.
No.
No, well, thank you very much. Yeah, I'll be there. It's, yeah, blowing my mind.
Sorry, can I jump in there? Mark.
Yeah.
Hi, it's Suchit here. So, what you were just saying there in regards to paying yourself through the project.
Yep.
So, is that just in the financials in regards to paying yourself for the work that you do?
Yeah. So, what most people don't realise, the perception of development, right, is that you do development, you wait 18 months, 2 years, and then you get paid. Now, that couldn't be further from the truth, because most developments are funded by banks, lenders, and the worst nightmare for a lender is for a developer going bankrupt because they don't have enough money. So what you do and what you can borrow for, this is the important thing, because it's all in your figures. It's obviously got to be in your figures, and within the, a funder will want to make sure that you are making at least a 20% margin, ideally higher, okay? As long as you've funded within that other 80% a monthly salary for you, it's all covered.
I see what you mean.
Yeah?
Yeah, just never accounted for that really. I've just, worked for free. Yeah.
No. And that's why you can do development from day one. You don't have to do buy-to-let or HMOs or rent-to-rent. You can do development. I mean, we say for our development mentorship is we will help you find it, fund it, build it.
Okay.
Mark, is that the same with commercial as well? Commercial to residential? Commercial residential?
Yeah, commercial residential is development. So yeah.
Development. Yeah.
Okay, I think we're done, Dan. I think you guys all want to go for a drink. Well, we would normally go down the bar, wouldn't we, now, if we were in a proper networking event?
Yeah, it would be nice. Would be very nice. Well, thanks very much, Mark. Brilliant talk, and Emerald as well. Fantastic talk from both of you two. And yeah, thanks again, everyone.
Sorry, I'm here. My battery's running out. I thought I was going to lose you all.
Well, we're just saying goodbye, Hells. I think we'll.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that's it for the night then.
Yeah, thank you, Hells, Dan, Mark,
Goodbye.
Emerald.
Love you. Don't put the phone down. Love you. That kind of stuff.
Thank you very much, everybody.
All right. Cheers, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Everyone.
Bye.